Hi, I'm Deborah,
And I'm Lawrence.
and in this video we're going to talk about 3 reasons that you might want to find a new therapist. Um, the first reason we're going to talk about is the chemistry you have with your therapist.
So, it's not necessarily just if you get along with them, because that's nice. You should get along with the person that you're paying to help you. I don't know, whatever you want to call therapy.
Well, they shouldn't be a jerk.
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of that goes without saying.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But some people may not have a lot of experience with therapists, and they may not realize that someone's being a jerk when they are being a jerk.
Can you see things working out? I mean, I'm not saying get a premonition of the future, but you have to be able to see, hey, I can bear talking to this person once, twice, however many times a week.
Right.
And I can bear speak to them and talk to them about my problems. Sometimes some things you might not want to talk about. You have to be comfortable with them.
Right.
That's really important. And if that chemistry's off, if you're like not comfortable with them, if you are not sure, if you're generally just either not sure or you're definitely against it, I'd say that's a situation where you should find a new therapist. That is definitely a situation, because this is important, and you got to find somebody that you can work with.
Yeah, I mean, this literally could be one of the most important relationships in your life, and it's something that sometimes you actually should kind of test out a few therapists. If your insurance allows you to make appointments that they'll pay for appointments where you're interviewing therapists, then that's what you should do. So you should talk to your mental health insurer and see if they'll allow you to do that, because that's what I did when we moved across the country and I had to get a new therapist, and I made appointments with 4 therapists, and there was one I was kind of about. There was one I ended up deciding to have as my therapist, and there were 2 that I just absolutely, I was so glad that I did this, because one of them was just very cold, and it wasn't like in psychoanalysis where they don't say anything. With psychoanalysis, they basically, what they do is they say nothing, and they wait for you to start talking, and they give you very few prompts. That's not what this was. This woman was just very, very cold, and I couldn't see myself talking to her about very, obviously very intimate topics in some cases.
Yeah, you gotta be sure that you can work with a person, because that is a good thing. If you can't do that, that ain't too good, because if you get stuck with somebody you don't like,
and you've had that experience.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
You've had 2 bad ones and 1 good one, right?
3 bad ones? Wait, no, there was... I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, and actually this is kind of interesting when you talk about chemistry, because one of the therapists who was really bad for Lawrence was really good for his brother. So that's why, for instance, it's a good idea sometimes to get referrals for therapists by asking people and you may find that you do not connect at all with someone that your friend or whoever referred you to the person thinks they think this person's great and they've made incredible progress. So it's something that you really need to spend time with this person one-on-one. So
yeah.
And the second reason that you might want to find a new therapist is if that therapist doesn't respect therapeutic boundaries. Therapeutic boundaries are really, really important in your relationship with a therapist. I'm going to link to an article I wrote, a much more involved discussion of therapeutic boundaries, but they're, just setting aside the really distinct, horrible violations of therapeutic boundaries like sexual abuse. Then there are other things that a therapist can do to to violate therapeutic boundaries. For instance, are they late all the time? Do they cancel on your appointment at the last minute all the time? Basically, do they not respect your time? Do they take non-urgent calls during your time? Remember that therapists are, very specific about how much time you have. They'll cut you off at 45 or 50 minutes, whatever it is. That time, during that time, is yours. So if you're going to respect that time limit that they have, they've got to respect that time. Are there financial things? So for instance, do they want to either borrow money from you in some way, or have you invest in some kind of financial, some kind of business of theirs or something? That's completely
I
out of
could not
bounds.
imagine somebody doing something that stupid, but
Yeah.
I guess it happens.
It's happened, and I mean, it's
Like in your experience,
no, not to me, but
Okay.
I mean, I've known people that it's happened to.
like they've asked, "Hey, I'm starting a business, invest."
Well, it could be anything. I mean, really, in some ways, let's say they've written a book,
Hmm.
suggesting that you buy it
Oh yeah.
is that's in some ways violating a therapeutic boundary. After all, why are you paying them how much you're paying them per hour? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like so why should you have to for instance, buy their book? You're supposed to be getting their wisdom and their skill and their experience specifically geared toward you. So I mean, that's something I've definitely heard of. So that's a no-no. So there are just various ways that they could violate those therapeutic boundaries. One thing is that they should make a concerted effort to not have any kind of relationship with you outside the 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 therapeutic relationship. So, and this is not necessarily sexual or romantic relationship. In other words, um, assuming that you live in a big enough town or city, they should make sure that they're avoiding, like, you shouldn't be in the same book club, okay? You shouldn't hopefully belong to the same church. If you do, if you're in a small town or something, they should not be engaging with you during those, in those areas, in those
They
particular
shouldn't come up to you and be
circumstances.
like, "Hey, how you
Right.
doing?"
Exactly. They should talk to you and say, you have to understand that this is the way things are supposed to be. I can't talk to you out. I really shouldn't be talking to you at any length outside our therapeutic relationship. And there are very good reasons for that. So the third reason that you might want to find a new therapist is that your therapy just isn't going anywhere. Now, this has a huge caveat, because first of all,
Isn't it caveat?
caveat, caveat, I think it's either way. A huge caveat and a couple little ones. So the little ones are: have you been participating fully in the therapy?
Yeah, because therapy is a give and take.
Right.
You are. How do I explain it?
You can't just show up and sit there,
Yeah.
because you're not going to get anywhere. If the therapist says to you, "We need to talk about this," you can't start talking about something else. You might do it as an avoidance tactic because you don't want to talk about what they want to talk about because it's painful. But if the therapist feels this is what we need to talk about, and you're like, "No, I really don't want to talk about that," so you have to trust this person to know what course this therapy should go. And so you have to be fully engaged in that. If they have homework for you to do, you have to be doing that homework, whatever it is. If they tell you to write a journal of your feelings, you can't come to the next appointment and be like, I just didn't have time. Well, that's not the therapist's fault if the therapy isn't going anywhere. I'm not saying that it's your fault per se, but you have to take this seriously and understand that these things that they're, these steps that they're asking you to take are for a reason.
Yeah, you have to put in effort just as much as they have to put in effort.
In fact, more actually, because they're there doing this for 45 minutes plus 10 minutes of notes that they take after you leave. You should think about spending some time during the week processing what you talked about. So it's actually more of a time investment on your part than it is on theirs. The thing is that you can't expect a therapist to just wave a magic wand and make everything all better. This is a collaborative effort, and the effort is more on your part in some ways than it is on the therapist.
Because you gotta, you gotta be open and honest about sometimes things you don't want to talk about. You have to put in the effort to be like, hey, I may really not want to talk about this, but I have to.
Yeah.
Because this is part of, getting better.
Yeah, otherwise you're just wasting their time and you're just wasting their time, your time.
Everybody's time is getting wasted.
Yeah.
Time and money.
And money. The other two little caveats are, did you and the therapist decide on a goal? Because if you haven't decided on a goal together for your therapy, then it's not going to go anywhere. You have to talk to the therapist. It may not be something really concrete.
Yeah.
My first therapist, I really, I went to this clinic with severe depression. The doctor started me on antidepressants or recommended them. I didn't start till 6 months later. And the therapist worked with me. I had no idea why I was depressed. So obviously at that point she had to talk to me for a while, and we had to have a few sessions before she could start seeing what the issues were. So, but sometimes you do come with a goal and you're like, this is what's wrong, this is what I want to work on,
And it's good to have like an idea of what you want out of therapy, because don't go in there blindly and be like, hey man, I have no idea.
If you have no experience with it, then that's understandable.
And if you don't know, if you are, like in your case, if you don't know what exactly is causing you to be depressed, your goal is find out what's causing you to be depressed, and if possible, rectify that.
Right, and that goal is probably going to change during your therapy.
Yeah, it's completely flexible.
But that's the thing is that you and the therapist should be on the same page as far as what the goal is of the therapy, and you're both working toward it. The other small caveat is, did you express your concern to your therapist about the fact that you feel like you're making any progress?
Because you can't just stew about this for a while and then be like, I'm getting a new therapist.
Yeah.
You have to be,
they're not mind readers.
Therapy is communication.
Yeah.
That is like the most important. That's what therapy is.
Yeah.
It's founded on communication. You have to communicate for it to work.
Yeah.
And if you are if you aren't thinking, if you're thinking, hey, I don't think this is going anywhere, talk to them.
Yeah.
Because they may be like, hey, okay, maybe I was doing something wrong. Maybe there was fault on your part. Yeah. And you may
look at the goal again. You may look at what they feel your progress has been, what you feel your progress has been. But you have to communicate. As Lawrence said, that's communication's key in therapy. That's it. Yeah.
Therapy is communicating.
Yeah. It's like guided communication.
Yeah.
So the big caveat is, are you getting freaked out because you're getting close to something significant in therapy? And significant usually means painful.
Yeah, I mean, you may be uncomfortable with therapy. You may be like, hey, I want to not do this because of the fact you're close to something maybe you don't want to talk about. And the thing is, you have to. Well, you don't have to, but I greatly recommend it.
Yeah.
Because, therapy is, you have to be honest about things, because experiences in your life that may not have been at all pleasant are definitely important to mention and important to talk about. And it may be painful to talk about. It may be really, really hard. Like the case may be you can't talk about it. You just can't find the words. You can't express it because you are just so scared or uncomfortable. And you know what? Thing is,
that's okay, because that's what the therapist is there to help you get through.
And if you still can't, they should be patient. They can help you
Yeah.
through the process of talking about it. And you know what? I think it's reasonable. You spend an entire session saying nothing because you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But you know,
It might happen.
no. There was a time where I really didn't want to talk about something, so I just spent
Yeah.
the entire
It
session
happens.
kind of just mumbling and stuttering.
But it's better than running away. So in other words,
Yeah.
if you start dreading your therapy, you might tell yourself it's because, you know what, I'm not getting anywhere, so it's just a waste of time.
But you gotta evaluate.
But
is it because you're getting to something you really don't want to talk about?
If you look at those feelings, is it because, like, I remember when a couple times when I got to that point, and the last place I wanted to be was in therapy because I was scared, not because we weren't getting anywhere. It actually was just the opposite. So you need to look at your feelings, because I've known people who have said, oh, literally, I knew someone who had something horrible happen in her childhood, told me, I'm just not going to see this therapist anymore, I'm not getting anywhere. But I knew from talking to her that they actually had been getting really close to talking about this painful, circumstance.
And that's exactly what you don't want.
Right.
Running away because of the fact you're close to something uncomfortable or scary, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Because that's actually a good thing, because you have to face it, deal with it, and get through it. But once you get through it, that's the whole point of therapy. So before you decide this is not the person for me, make sure you have good concrete reasons, and that you're not doing it because you're like, God, I just don't want to be in therapy. Not
Exactly.
I could be doing better things because I'm wasting my time, but I don't want to be there. So I think those feelings are pretty distinct. When you think about it, then I think you can recognize what it is.
I mean, I felt that
if you've
kind of stuff.
dread in the pit of your stomach at the thought of going to therapy, that's not because things aren't going on. That's because things are going somewhere. So,
I mean, I've had that experience. I've been like, hey, maybe I should just tell my mom I really don't want to go to therapy because I'm sick or something. Because I remember one time I was talking about something that was uncomfortable for me, so I just wanted to skip the therapy that day.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't.
And it's
fine.
completely understandable if you're scared, but you can't use it as an excuse
to not go to therapy
to
or
go to
quit.
Because then what happens if you find a new therapist? Then you have to start that whole process all over again. And if there's
you'll
nothing wrong
eventually
with,
get to that point again.
Yeah.
And
if you're perfectly happy with this therapist, but your mind is tricking you into thinking that this is just a little waste of time or whatever, that's not it. Right?
Yeah.
So we hope this video has been helpful, and we would love to see any comments you might have on this. I had a page on my website. One of the first pages I had back in the 90s was I knew I had a good/bad psychiatrist, but also a therapist when ... And I put some of mine, and people at that time, there was no comments. We didn't have comments. It was people would email me comments and say, you can post this. So it was unbelievable, the nerve that it struck. So, if you want to share, then that would be great. And
we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you'd like to see more videos like this about depression and anxiety and all aspects around mental health, mental illness, then please consider subscribing, and also give us a like if you want, or don't if you don't want. And we'll see you next time.